Hey, good morning. Well, good morning. Good afternoon. 12 o'clock. So we're glad everybody's here. Thanks for coming today on such a hot day. I'd like to see a show of hands real quick. How many first-timers here today? Any first-timers? In fact, glad to have you here. I learned something about this table over here. There's two guys at this table who have 4 daughters, so I think we'd pray for them right now. So 4 daughters. That's incredible. Glad to have you here. Hey, what a great day. Before I get started with any other announcements, I want to have the guys everybody who was here for the cookout, who cooked at the cookout we had a couple weeks ago, raise your hand. They're still sweating. Yeah. Thank you. What a great event. Did we get a head count total on, we had it was a good oil field deal. We had some people say there's 300, some people said there's 1,000, so I don't know how many. It sounded like maybe 300. Yeah. Joe says it felt like 300,000 was what he said. Yeah. Anyhow, what a great event to do that cookout and just open it up for the homeless in Oklahoma City to do it right here. And I just love what a great showing for the oil field. So guys, all of you who did that, Matt, thanks for all your help spearheading that. All of you did that. Really appreciate that. All right. Hey, so on your tables today, we have the oil field Bible again. Make sure and take that with you and give that to someone. Also, we have some of the flyers for the City Rescue Mission. And guys, get a handful of these too, because what a great thing to do. Look at my lovely assistant down here is going to show me thanks, Randy. Hand these out. And for people who need it, and 2, for us to just get more support for City Rescue Mission with we all have contacts. We walk in offices. There's so many different ways they can support it. And I can't tell you, I'm standing here in this air-conditioned room. I can't imagine being out on the street, and yet we see them on the street all the time. So what a great way for us to throw our support behind that. And then Shane, tell me, where's Shane? Right here. About the coffee shop. Where'd he go? He disappeared. I'm right back here. Go ahead. Yeah.
So, in the cookout we had, give a tour of the facility for the very first time, and the culmination of the tour, we were taken across the street to the Rise Coffee Shop. And I was like, you know what better way to support what supports us and what we support than to continue supporting bringing meetings and things and support at the Rise Coffee Shop. You want to look for a new cup of coffee, and they can just take a little more to it. But I think you guys bring in and train and actually pay the people that are part of this program into the coffee shop right across the street from here. And so give them a try out. We want to reach out and support actual meetings. It's a nice, quiet place with Wi-Fi, it's air conditioned, and they have good products. So I'm going to try that out. Okay?
Jason, thank you for that. Yep.
Somebody weekdays, 7 to 2, breakfast, lunch items, all drinks, awesome. At this point, like I said, we have vocational readiness. We have folks over there who are clients moving through the commission. They're going there for job training, resume building, soft skills, all that kind of stuff to help them get reintegrated back into the employment. So there's a lot of great opportunities with all the coaches.
Love that.
Right there across the street, you guys can use the Wi-Fi.
Love the intentionality of that, how they make it where they train them and give them the skills. The same thing going on in the kitchen here too, where they train them, give them skills so they leave here and get a job, or even stay here and go out and get a job. So appreciate that. All right. Hey, do we have any prayer requests that we can pray for? We'll pray for all the workers on the rigs today on 105. Those in the heat. Anyone else with a prayer request?
Yeah, I've got a cousin that's facing leukemia.
Okay. His or her name?
I'm sorry?
Is it what's his name?
It's Tiffany.
Tiffany. Her name is Tiffany. Leukemia. Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Well, let me pray, and I'll introduce our guest speaker. Join me in prayer. Lord, thank you for today. Thank you for this facility that serves you and your people so well. help us to be your hands and feet and to encourage others and to find those who need the services offered here and help us to continue to support this ministry, God. We thank you for that. I thank you for OCF and all we've been doing all these years and just the great partnership we have with City Rescue Mission. Lord, I want to lift up Tiffany to you as she starts leukemia treatment. And I just pray for peace and strength. Your word in Psalm 29:11 says, Lord, gives his people strength and he blesses them with peace. And I'm sure she'll need a double dose of both of that right now. And then also, Lord, we want to lift up all those in the oil field and other industries as well that are working in this heat for protection, for safety. And we just pray that for them. We thank you again that we can come here into an air-conditioned room and hear a word from one of your followers, God. So we thank you for all this, and I ask just blessings on this facility and then on Oilfield Christian Fellowship. In your name we pray. Amen. Okay, so this would be a good time to turn your chair if you want to, so we eliminate all the squeaks. It seems like it always gets pretty unbearable. I'm really excited to have my friend Randy Patterson share today. Randy, come on up. Randy and I have known each other since he was here. Well, he's going to give you. Randy is kind of the OCF historian. You guys are going to hear him pull dates out of the air that just will amaze you on what. I can't remember what I had for lunch yesterday. I didn't remember when we went to lunch last time. But Randy was with Tenneco when I first met him as an engineer. I've been here and been on with OCF forever, but more than that, just a good friend of mine. So, Randy, come share with us. I'm going to give you this.
Yeah, because y'all wouldn't be able to hear me if I didn't put the mic on. So.
That's cool.
Oh, Randy, speaker?
Yeah.
Okay, can you hear me okay? I don't want to blow you out. I brought my hard hat just in case. In case the audience gets a little tough and rough. I was telling somebody one day, for those of us who have been around in the business for decades, the energy companies, they used to think so much of us, they protected two parts of our body. The crown of our head and the tips of our toes. And nothing really in between, right? And in my last job I had for about 3.5 years working for a service company, I had every kind of personal protective equipment, PPE that you can imagine. I had things that would protect me from impact, from fire, from flame, from, you name it, chemicals, et cetera, et cetera. So it kind of comes down to, do we need to fear and how do we protect ourselves? How do we live with, in an age of protection, and how do we avoid fearing? Sammy is here. Sammy Graham is somewhere over there. So I'm going to start off with just a little bit of humor. And if it doesn't go over too well, he was his classmate, who was later my brother-in-law, Joey Waddle, from Arkansas. And I'm going to go ahead and trust you guys are a kind audience. Anyway, Joey told me one day that there was a young man in his mid-20s. He went to work on Monday, and his colleagues immediately noticed that he had two black eyes. And they said, Billy, what's the deal? We thought you'd cleaned up your act and turned your life over to God and become a God-fearing Christian and all this kind of stuff, yet you got two black eyes. He goes, oh, I can explain that. He said, I was in church yesterday. I said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, the music minister started striking some notes on the keyboard, and we all stood up, and I noticed Miss McGillicuddy in front of me. Her dress was kind of stuck up in her crack, so I just reached up to pull it out for her, and that's how I got this black eye. And okay, how'd you get the other black eye? He said, well, I took it that she didn't like it that way, so I wouldn't put it back. So, so that's in memory of my dear departed brother-in-law, Joey Waddle, who was a schoolmate of Sammy, small world, over in Prescott, Arkansas. Okay, and I tell people all the time, we get together and we talk and we talk and we flap our gums. We talk about our beliefs. We talk about the oil field. We tell our stories. And it's amazing how much we all have in common with each other. The people we know in common, the things we've done in common, etc. It's just amazing. And I was looking for something this morning. I was going to see if I could find a speech that a young senior wrote one time for a graduation commencement. I couldn't find it. I was going to read that speech and let you know that was the only time I've ever actually written and delivered a speech, okay? And that was 44 years ago. I'm very extemporaneous. I just, off the top of my head is what I go with. I've got a few dates here, but I told Jeff what I would do is I'd kind of weave a little bit of my personal testimony with Wellfield Christian Fellowship because they're so intertwined, okay? And so I started in Oklahoma City. I grew up in Oklahoma City. I went to University of Oklahoma. I went to work for a company called Tenneco Oil Company, where I met a young Max Holloway many years ago. He was in training. He rode with me for a couple, 3 days. And I'll tell you what, I don't remember what happened that day. I think I've told a few people, I think I've told him this story a couple of times. I always tell people, I won't say anything about you, I won't say to your face. But Max said something to me while he was training. We're only a year or two apart. It's not like he's a young kid or anything, but he said something to me and it kind of irritated me. I almost said, get out of the car, but I didn't. But Max has had a very successful petroleum career. And more importantly, I was gone for 15 years. When everything went down in the late 80s, we moved to LA and then Houston. I came back here in 2003. I came back here 19 years ago. And very quickly, I found Jeff Hubbard. He was one of about this many salespeople that I recognized from 88 that was still here in 03 that I knew and recognized. And so it was great to run into Jeff again. And then quickly I ran into Max Holloway. And Max started coming to our early lunches back in 04 at the hometown buffet. And I was just so amazed at both these guys. Not surprised, but just amazed what these guys had done with their lives. And I don't mean just the oil field. They're both very successful in what they do, but they both married wonderful ladies, got wonderful families. And if you go out on Facebook, I'm privileged to be Facebook friends with both these guys. When you see these family photos, of course, Max has some extra change, so maybe he gets it hired. I don't know, but it looks really good. The Facebook posts look really good, Max. The Facebook posts look really good, Jeff. And so that's that. But long story short, I came back here in 03, and I had joined a group in 2000. I was a baby Christian. I became a Christian then in 99, and I was a baby Christian in 2000. And they had just merged in the Amoco company into BP, and then they would merge the Arco Vastar into BP. So if you were in Houston and you were working or consulting for BP, you had all these different varieties, heritages. And people say, well, Randy, are you Arco Vastar or are you Amoco? And I say, I'm neither. I'm just a consultant. I'm Tenneco Oil and SoCal Gas and whatnot. But I got to meet all these people. And this one guy I became friends with really quick. His name was Jim Teague. And he said, hey, Randy, what you doing for lunch next Wednesday? And if there's one thing I've religiously done my whole life since I was a kid is I do lunch. I'm very religious about that. My dad taught me no matter what's going on, you do lunch. You do lunch every day. And that's one of the great lessons my dad taught me. And so when Jim said, hey, you do anything next Wednesday for lunch? I said, no, I'm good. He said, we got a salesman, I think, from Halliburton Security. He's going to come by and take us to lunch. I said, sounds great. So the next Wednesday he called me. He said, he's out front. I'll meet you out front. And we jump out in front of the BP building, and he whistles us, takes us out to I-10, and we start heading into I-10. And he goes, hey, you guys want to go to the boat? The sea? No. Keep going. Hey, you want to go to the steak place? You want to go to the steak? No, keep going. And next thing you know, we're exiting this obscure exit about 1 mile before the 610 loop. And we take this exit, and you just see some buildings, some businesses, no restaurants, no signs, nothing flashing. He said, where are we going to? Just follow the service road and make a right turn in there. We make a right turn in. We pull up into a shady area, and we see a bunch of kids on a swing set. It's a daycare. It's First Baptist of Houston at the 610 loop. He said, what are we doing here? He says, we're going to do lunch. You often take us to lunch. You're taking us to lunch. We're going to the Wellfield Christian Fellowship of Houston. And when we get in there, it's going to be, I think in those days it was $10. Everything's gone up. But when we get in there, it'll be $10 a head, and you'll just pay $30, and you'll get a receipt for $30, and you're taking us to lunch. Oh, okay. So at that point, the salesman found out he was taking us to the Wellfield Christian Fellowship for lunch. And at that point, I found out he was taking us to the Wellfield Christian Fellowship for lunch. And I'd only been a Christian for less than a year. And we walk in, and it was tables of 10, I believe. And there was close to about 175 people there. And you paid, you went through the line, you got your meal, you sat down. And like I said, I'm a baby Christian. I'm still very nervous about different things in gatherings. And when I left that day, I was just so pleased. And you'll find out one of my favorite words during testimony is amazed. I tell people all the time, I'm never surprised about anything that God does, but I'm continuously amazed. And that day, I was amazed when I left there because I thought, wow, we had like 150, 175 men and women from all over the greater Houston area all take off at lunch, and many of them bring clients, and we all showed up here, we broke bread, and then they had somebody a lot more talented than this guy get up in front and give a testimony, And they never passed the plate. They didn't have us stand up and volunteer any information. We didn't have any memberships. We didn't have to sign up for anything. It was just, and you come and you go and you leave with a good feeling. I go, this is really neat. This is cool. And I started going on a regular basis, you know. And that was what Jim Teague would do, because Jim had started OCF about 9 years before. And I know some of you guys have heard this story about 14 times, so I'll tell it real quick. But basically, it was the spring of 91, and Jim Teague was a drilling engineer. And he's on the phone with John Bird, who's a drilling fluid specialist salesman. And they just get to talking about one thing or another. How was your weekend? Oh, we had a really cool thing at church. And, oh, that's right, you're a Christian, aren't you? Yeah, I'm a Christian too, yeah. I wonder how many Christians are in the oil field in Houston, Texas. And Jim Teague said, well, there's this one and this one. And Jim Teague says, I know at least 4 guys that are Christians in Houston in 1991. And John Bird starts rattling off some names. And Jim's like, oh, now you're just showing off. You're a sales guy. You know, I'm looking down here at Charlie. Charlie's one of my favorite sales manager guys. And I'm just thinking, yeah, John Bird, you know all these people in Houston. You would know like a dozen Christians in the oil patch in Houston. If anybody ever heard of Houston, Texas? They have a little bit of energy business that goes on down there in H-Town. And so anyway, one thing led to another. I said, we ought to throw a breakfast and see how many people would show up. And they were doing lunch at one of the Mexican places. And the guy overheard him said, you guys going to do a breakfast? Would you like to have it here? And he goes, y'all do breakfast? He says, well, we'll open up and serve a breakfast if you'll guarantee payment for 50 people. And Jim and I, well, I don't know if we can get 50 or not. This is before you had email, very strong, 1991. But he said, we'll see what we can do. And so they spread word mostly by phone or face, as in face-to-face, not FaceTime. And said if you can make it on that first Wednesday of the month at 6 or 6:30 in the morning, show up down there at that place. Well, they had somebody step up and say, I'll guarantee it. It was like $12 a head, so I'll put up the $600. So if we come up short, I'll cover. They had 54 people show up. So they met the minimum plus. They met for a couple of months at breakfast and decided that's just a rough time to meet because there's so much morning stuff going on and morning reports and rig calls and things. So they moved it to lunch. So they've been meeting for lunch on the first Wednesday since 1991. So when I came along in 2000, they've been meeting for about 9 years. And then about 3 years later, I got moved up here to work for this little mom and pop company called Chesapeake Energy. Boy, was I dumb. Was I misinformed. It went from a small mom and pop company to a big mom and pop company. But I got here. It brought me back home to my hometown. And as soon as I got up here, John Bird was like, Randy, you got to start a chapter. You got to start a chapter. And I didn't know, but he was also working on a guy named Rick Johnson, who's over at EOG. Rick, you got to start a chapter. You got to start a chapter. And little notes to us, it was this guy, and somebody visiting here today, he's got a white shirt. I don't know if I see him. Anyway, he's in the audience. I think right here. Yeah, this gentleman right here. I go out to the parking lot one day in 04, spring of 04. I'm in my office. I've been there for 4 hours. It's 9:30. I've been there since 5:30 in the morning. At about 9:30 in the morning, something prompts me to get up to go get something out of my company pickup truck. To this day, I have no idea what I was prompted to get, but I know who was prompting me. Because I got up from my desk and I went outside to head to my pickup truck, hoping that I'll remember what I need to get when I get there. And on the way, I run into this really weird, kind of goofy guy. And I had been taught, having worked for companies out in LA and BP in Houston, I'd been taught to look for a, ID badge or security like that, even in the parking lot. And so I said, can I help you? He said, you sure could, brother. And so I just played it back and said, so how can I help you, brother? He goes, well, you're not going to believe this, but, well, without going into all my personal testimony, I can just tell you, starting back in 1999, when somebody says, you're not going to believe this, I get excited. Because those are like, I'll probably mess up the recording, but those are really magical words, special words when somebody says, you're not going to believe this. Because I am going to believe it. Because that's the way I'm programmed. And he said, long story short, I do children's nonprofit ministry. He said 9/11 happened a couple of years ago, and it basically wiped us out. And we had put all of our money into these little packages to hand out to kids, and we had them in a storage building. And when 9/11 came, it wiped all of our businesses out, and all we have left is a storage building with these little, it's basically for people who have lost a parent, for kids. And it's called I Cried Too. Anyway, we just prayed about it. And oh, by the way, he had met his wife at Rhema Bible College in Tulsa. He had met her a couple of years before, married her, adopted her 2 sons, her 2 children, a son and daughter, because they had lost their dad in a tragic accident, which was the foundation for that book, I Cried Too, and the recording that went with it, I Cried Too, and the little plush bunny that was part of the kit. Because on that one afternoon, Daddy had come home, and the little son, who's now like 34, the little son at the time, he went running out to see Daddy, and they saw a little bunny rabbit run into a piece of pipe, like drain pipe. And the dad, kind of horseplay, they always say don't do horseplay. Well, the dad grabbed that piece of pipe to shake the bunny out. When he did, he hit an overhead power line and was electrocuted. And he literally died in front of his 3-year-old son. And needless to say, that event and what it did to the little boy and his little sister and the mom, the wife, it was a very traumatic experience. And she relocated to Tulsa, enrolled in Rhema Bible College. Jim relocated from Hill Country, enrolled at Rhema. They met each other. They fell in love. They got married. He adopted the kids. But they would still talk about that and pray about that. Because no matter how you try to, they always say you can't, there's some things you just can't get over. But with God's help, you get through it. Day by day, you just get through it. And so Jim and Sheila were thinking, how can we get through this? How can we get through this? And so that's when they decided to write this book. And it was it had nothing to do with profit. They just decided to write this story. And it was through the eyes of a bunny. And so the book and the recordings, and of course the little bunny is based on a true event, but it's written in such a kind, loving way. And it was written and illustrated by this family. They're a very talented family. Jim's the storyteller, and Sheila and the kids are very artistic and musical. So they had written this thing, and they were going to try to sell these or do something to raise money for orphans, whatever the case was. And when the whole 9/11 thing happened, some industries went up and a lot of industries went down. And so the things they were involved with went down. And trying to raise money for nonprofits, it was also way down. And they're like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And they get a phone call from somebody representing the Pentagon. And the Pentagon said, we lost a lot of people here at the Pentagon. And a lot of these people had children. They lost one or both parents. And we heard you have a little kit. We'd like to buy a bunch of those and hand them out. And so that started the process of handing these out for both military and non-military families that have lost, where children have lost one or more parents. And the guy that owns FedEx, and Jim always notices, if you ever look at the FedEx truck where it says FedEx, there's like an arrow. But the guy who runs FedEx said, I heard you're giving these things out and you're having to mail them individually. He goes, yeah. He goes, not anymore, you're not. From now on, every month, I'm going to send you a mailing ID for FedEx. And anytime you need to ship some, you just package them up, put our little thing, and put the monthly and send them. So I haven't talked to Jim recently about it, but I know for years and years and years, FedEx was covering all the cost of mailings out around the country. So on that one day when I'm out in the parking lot, I'm running into this guy. That's Jim Schmidt, otherwise known as Armadillo Jim Schmidt. And we're talking out in the parking lot for a few minutes. And I always like to tell this because it always gets a chuckle for anybody that knows me, because he said, brother, here's the deal. He said, I've been in nonprofits and we've been scraping bottom and we're just not doing it. And my brothers have put me to work part-time. Starting this week, I'm a part-time oil field salesman. After a dozen years doing other stuff, I'm part-time oil field sales. So I was wondering, is there anything you could do to give me any sales tips? Any sales? I've never done sales, okay, right? Not like that. And I'm going, and he's just giving me these puppy dog eyes. I'm like, okay, these are all the buildings here at Chesapeake. And that building right there is, you see that second floor, that window, that's the snack area. Every morning, Monday through Saturday, and even on Sundays to some degree, but every morning, people bring food in. And so if you show up with any kind of food around 7 o'clock in the morning, it can be in a box, a bag, a sack, anything. It could be sausage, it could be burgers, it could be bacon this, it could be eggs, it could be sausage, it could be this, it could be that, it could be fruit, it could be, did I say sausage? It could be sausage. And if you bring it, they will open the doors. And you can literally have, and this was a long time ago, this was 2004, this is 18 years ago, you could literally have hand grenades snapped on you. You could be carrying Uzis, but if you got a bag or a box or something that smells of grease, ID is not required. They'll let you right on in. You take it in and drop it off. I don't think that part of the world has probably changed very much, but yeah. So he said, well, thank you very much. And he said, well, what would be a good day? And I said, well, I think Thursday, because I was literally thinking to myself, we're getting McDonald's on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. On Mondays we get this. On Wednesdays we get this. On Fridays we get the cool little deals. Yeah, Thursdays is kind of a slow day. Yeah, Thursday would be good. He goes, okay. And he says, what should I bring? I said, well, it's up to you. Anything you want to bring, but maybe something a little healthier. I mean, it would be kind of cool if somebody brought something maybe like the F word, fruit, maybe some fruit, maybe some fruit juice, some vegetables. I don't know, something, just an idea, but you do what you want to do. Okay, fine. Well, the next day, I didn't realize, the next day happened to be Thursday. He calls me about 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning. Randy Patterson, this is Jim. I go, Jim who? Because that's been like 24 hours, which for me is like 3 days. I've talked to 100 rigs, and my mind's blown. And he said, yeah, I talked to you yesterday morning, and well, this morning I didn't see you, but I showed up this morning. I brought a bunch of fruit, and I went in, I cut it all up, and I put it on plates, and I started serving. And I met 3 drilling superintendents, and I met 2 VPs, and I met 6 engineers, and I met all those wonderful ladies. All those ladies, they were so, because I needed some plates and serve. They helped me, and they got me plates and trays. And I served all this stuff, and I met all these people. I collected all these cards, and it was just great. And I want to take you to lunch. Like, see, he said the magic word. And I said, but I'm still home. I said, but you don't have to take me to lunch. No, I want to take you to lunch. I said, well, okay. He said, are you doing it for lunch? And I said, well, no, actually, I'm not. He says, can you go to lunch? And I said, oh, okay. He said, yeah, I'm down from Tulsa today. Per your advice, it's Thursday. I want to take you to lunch. Well, long story short, we go for like an hour and a half lunch, which I never did. And then we got back, we sat in the pickup truck for another 15 to 30 minutes, which I never did. Because I know people are watching and coming by my desk and see that I'm not at work at this place called Chesapeake, and I'm in the drilling group. And this is 2004, and we're literally going from 25 rigs to 168 rigs. So it's a lot of names for a workshop, sweatshop, whatever. Busy place. But we're in the parking lot, and we are talking about Oilfield Christian Fellowship, OCF of Houston. And how it's one of the most wonderful things I've ever seen. It was in Houston, and I got people wanting us to do it here, but I just don't know how we're going to make it happen. And Jim looked me in the face, and I'll never forget, he said, it's going to happen. I go, pardon? What? It's going to happen. It's going to happen. And to this day, I tell people, and like I said, I didn't know at the time, but Rick Johnson, they'd been talking to Rick, they'd been talking to me, maybe talking to some other people, I don't know. But Jim was literally the grease beneath the skids. And it goes back, and you can do all kinds of Bible studies, but you know what it comes down to? It takes all kinds of people to make things work. All of us have a talent, a skill, a gift. And of course, all of us are lacking certain talents, skills, and gifts. So when I look down here, I know so many faces in here that I've known, worked with, visited with, people who have been on OCF, people who have led this group, people who have helped so much with the communications and the PR, and it's just, everybody can do something. And I'm not doing this as a pitch for OCF. What I'm doing this as a pitch for is literally to love your neighbor. And one of the philosophies I've taken up recently is trust in God, love and pray for all others. Because the last couple of years have literally, it's broke my heart when I go on to, maybe it's because I'm getting older, maybe it's because I'm getting sappy, but I go online and I see postings and things, and it's only in the last, especially the last few months, I've started unfollowing people for 30 days, but mostly just block this thing, I just don't want to see it. I don't want to see it. Because we have an opportunity to share and post so much good stuff. You know, whether it's a corny joke or something that good happened to our family, or posting, how old's your son? Is he 2? You know, if you have a cute blonde 2-year-old, photograph him, videotape him, and post him all the time. I never get tired. Okay? Or grandkids. In some cases, they're grandkids. How old's your youngest now? 3 months. And so that's my message. I had a little bullet list here of things I was going to talk about, but in the savings of time here, that's my message is there's so much we can do to share love, and I do want to read one thing off here if I can find it here. But come up here. Take my glasses off where I can see. I can't see you, but this is Galatians 5:16 to 17. So I say, walk by the Spirit, and you will not gratify the desires of the flesh. For the flesh desires what is contrary to the Spirit, and the Spirit what is contrary to the flesh. They are in conflict with each other, so that you are not to do whatever you want. That's Galatians 5:16, 17. And I'm gonna close with a little prayer here. And what I would do before I forget, if you get a chance before you leave, just come up to me. If you get a chance, I'll be down here. Just come up and shake my hand and give me your first name. And because I tell people, I've been away from the industry so much in the last couple of years, I've literally forgotten a lot of names. And I remember almost everybody's faces, but sometimes I have trouble remembering if I haven't said your name in a while. So just come up to me. I know Jeff. I know a couple, but just come and say, hey, Randy. I'd really appreciate this. So I make sure so whether it's the first time I've met you or the 18th time I met you, just come up to me and say your name. I'd appreciate that. And then the other thing is I do the correspondence. So if you want to give me, if you're not on our email list and you want to give me an email address, and come up to me and tell me that or write it down for me. So I'm going to close in prayer here, and I want to read this little deal because I'm going to pray that as we seek Jesus, that like the paralytic back in the old times, that we'll find much, much more than we sought. And I want to thank Jesus for for always giving just an amazingly large amount more than what I never expect. I never know what to expect. My expectations, I always have human expectations. I set kind of somewhat low, moderate expectations because I don't want to be disappointed. But when it comes to our Lord, the expectations are always exceeded. And so, as Luke 5:26 says, everyone was amazed and gave praise to God. They were filled with awe and said, we have seen remarkable things today. I'm going to repeat that. We have seen remarkable things today. And so, Lord, I want to thank you for all the remarkable things that you've shown me in the last 22 years. I also want to thank you for the last 22 years of OCF, the last 18 years of OCF OKC. I want to thank you for so many friends here, so many encouragers, so many people who have shown me love through the trials, through trying to keep my head above water, to keep on keeping on. I just want to give thanks for all these, Lord. I also want to lift up anybody right now who is hurting physically, mentally, or spiritually, anybody who is overcoming any kind of illness, disease, surgery, addiction, whatever the issue is, Lord. I just want to lift them up. And like I said, at the end, anybody who would like to come to me and just say hi, shake my hand, and we'll be glad to say a prayer, a one-on-one prayer if anybody needs one-on-one prayer, Lord. So, Lord, we just give thanks for this day, and I pray that everybody will leave this place with a little pep in their step, a little smile on their face, because you just never know when somebody you run into, they need that smile. They need that handshake. They need that pat on the back. They need that word of encouragement. You just never know, because oftentimes I've been the one receiving that smile, that pat on the back, that hug, that whatever. And so I've been a receiver of it, and I encourage all of you, when you can, donate to others that gift of love. So I say, I love you, pass it on. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Thanks, Randy.
You bet.
Appreciate that. Like I said, I feel like...
Yeah, turn it back on. Oh, yeah, let me just say it. I do want to say...
I'm sorry, guys.
I didn't mean to say this. I got completely lost it, but 17 years ago, because we had started in the fall of 04, so 17 years ago, it was July 7th, which happened to be my dad's 76th birthday. And Rick Johnson asked me to give my testimony on July 7th, 05, on my dad. And my dad and my mom were both alive. And so I invited my mom and dad to come up to the hometown buffet and witness me give my testimony for the first time, and first time to this group. And I brought a birthday cake. So we were able to celebrate OCF, my testimony, and my dad's birthday. And it was very special because 1 year later, I took my dad out to Cattleman's for his 77th birthday. We had just laid my mom to rest 2 days before. So that was the last dad's birthday where everybody was present, and I got to give my testimony, and my parents got to see that there was some spiritual hope for their son. So